Well, everyone, First Degree Burn just wrapped up, and ooh, man, what a chapter it was. So much stuff happened, but also essentially it just boils down to Mike having to choose between bowing down to someone else and his own happiness. But we will get to that, because how do we get to that choice? What gets set up that puts Mike in a position to choose between himself or someone else? Well, right out of the gate, we actually had a huge reveal, which is the 4 people that have been chasing Lucy in her dreams, which was Sue, Daisy, Paulo, and Alejandro, not Mike. A lot of people thought it was going to be Mike, and it's interesting to go back and watch the video that I had made about who could possibly be chasing Lucy. And it is interesting that Lucy does not see Mike as one of her tormentors. Like, Paulo, I can kind of see maybe. Daisy, and it's Sue? Sue is one of the tormentors? Like, I don't get it. There's more there. It's just like the last chapter where I'm like, it's just so interesting. Like, what does this mean? Why is Mike not there? Why does she see her friends that have legitimately tried to be her friend as her tormentors? But then we cut to a scene that a lot of people might consider to be Augustus's December. This scene turned a lot of people against Augustus. It's interesting that a lot of people that normally are completely pro Lucy even had to admit that Augustus is going a bit far. But what do we mean by this? So Augustus walks up to Mike and tells Mike that he can't go outside anymore during recess because Mike going outside is hurting Lucy, even though that might not really be the case because Mike wasn't one of the 4 that was chasing her in her dream. I also get the feeling that Lucy would probably not want Augustus to do this anyway, and we'll get to this like towards the end of this. But I think if Lucy saw Augustus doing this, she'd hit him upside the head, tell Mike to ignore everything he just said, and drag him away. I really don't think this is something Lucy wants, and we'll get to it later. We'll get to it in a bit. Anyway, Mike tries to fight back a little bit in his own timid Michael way by saying that he wants to be able to spend time with James and David. However, the way he words it is very interesting, and I didn't realize until just before I started recording as I was going back over the chapter again, and I'll go ahead and read what he says now. Well, I didn't mean to. I mean, it wasn't my fault. I didn't expect James and David to just start hanging in the Oval every recess. So it appears that James and David, irregardless of Mike, have decided to start spending time together outside during recess, and Mike has just been kind of tagging along to that. More proof that James and David are gonna end up being a thing, which is great. I've gone over that. We're very happy. We're very excited. We stand. What are we gonna call this ship? Dave's? You know, dames, whatever you want to call it. We stand this ship here on the Fannel. But it is interesting to note that Mike isn't necessarily not being invited to hang out with them, but they are doing this together on their own volition, and Mike's just kind of tagging along. Mike just ends up relenting and going like, sure, I'll stay away during recess, even though he's completely within his right to be outside. Augustus doesn't have the right to tell Mike that he's not allowed to be in a place just because Lucy might be there. Augustus's request is just kind of very unreasonable, and I think a lot of people, basically everybody, universally agreed that this was a very stupid thing to do. And I think even Lucy would agree, but we will get to that towards the end. As Mike enters the cafeteria, we see his stomach is growling, which is another reminder that Mike isn't really eating. And he tries to convince David and James to stay inside during recess instead of going outside. But it is very clear that the both of them are like, we just want to get away from this little gray cat. Like, this guy's totally stepping on our style right now. And they just want to go outside, which they do anyway. And Mike's like, no, wait, come back, no. And they're just like, nah, bro, we're going outside to do the things that we wanted to do together that we couldn't do while you were there. They didn't say that, but they were definitely thinking it probably. And the rest of the track team is like, Mike, don't even worry about it because James is like really unfocused and he's not worth it. And he's a bit of a crazy guy. And Mike well, you know, Mike, he don't be listening to nobody. So he says, fuck it. And he chases after them and he goes outside anyway. And we see Augustus glaring at him with the side eye and Lucy looking really concerned for Augustus about why he might be upset. And this is a very interesting pivotal moment for Mike because if you guys remember back in Double Down, Daisy said that one of Mike's biggest problems is that he just lets people walk all over him and he tries to make everyone happy at the cost of himself. And what we're seeing here is Mike starting to really internalize this message, where he is now going outside to hang out with David and James because it will make him happy, irregardless of what Augustus will feel about it. Obviously, Augustus is upset, and a lot of people did not like this move from Mike. And by a lot of people, I mean sort of the Patreon comments. There were some people that were kind of on Mike's side, but a lot of people like, this is very wrong of you, Mike. I know there are biases towards different characters depending on where you go in the community. A lot of the people that are the incast tend to lean more towards Lucy and Augustus, and a lot of people that are outcast or banned tend to lean more towards Mike. And it has presented me a lot of different angles that I might not have considered because I am only one person, and while I try to see things objectively, there are always going to be things that are occluded. And the perspective of Mike is doing something wrong here is interesting. Well, I think Mike is objectively within his right to go outside, and Augustus is still very wrong to try to stop him from doing that. I do get the issue of Mike doing this against Augustus's wishes without really trying to put up any sort of pushback. Like, Mike kind of tried to push back on it, but he still relented and was like, yeah, okay, and then went back on it later. It does seem like a dick move from Augustus's perspective because Augustus was under the impression that Mike was just gonna do what he asked. But now Mike is going completely against that. I don't understand how you can be against Augustus's requests while also still being upset with Mike for going against Augustus's request. You gotta pick one or the other, in my opinion. I guess, yes, it would be a common courtesy for Mike to be like, hey, Augustus, I know you don't want to do that, but I'm going to do that because these are my friends and I have a right to be out there. But then again, people might see that as a dick move. I get Augustus is trying to protect Lucy, and now we will finally get to the Lucy stuff. As I mentioned before, I don't think Lucy would have liked this at all. In fact, this is something that I talked about when these pages with Augustus telling Mike to stay away from the circle at recess were coming out. I was like, Lucy would hate this. And we're gonna bring back stuff that happened in Seeing Stars, which is what led Augustus to request Mike not go outside during recess. Lucy starts kind of having her PTSD Seeing Stars moment when Mike goes outside, and Augustus keeps prying for Lucy to open up about how she's feeling, or is she upset that Mike is out there? And Lucy says that she's fine. She keeps reiterating, I'm fine, it's whatever, I know they're there, I don't care. And a lot of people, and I think even myself at the time, pretty much were like, yeah, she's just trying to hide and cover up how she's feeling, which is true, but I also think that in that specific moment, specifically regarding her feelings towards Mike being outside on the track during recess, I legitimately think she is actually fine with that. Like, when she was saying she knows he's there, she doesn't care, it's fine, she was being honest. I think she's changed a lot and gone far as her being able to distinguish the things that are making her upset. Mike being out there didn't make her upset. It's like all the other stuff with the PTSD. And even then, I think she's reached a level of objectivism where she is like, okay, this is personally making me upset, but I know that it is actually not a problem at all. And even then, I don't think Mike being out there was making her personally upset. And to further prove this point, Lucy doesn't at all seem concerned that Mike is out there. She's more concerned about Augustus looking upset. So this further proves that, yeah, Augustus was taking things too far, and Lucy just does not give a shit that Mike is out there. I do believe Lucy has completely become okay for the most part, or at least she's accepted that her and Mike will not be a thing. Even if part of her still wants that, she is okay with that, and that's great. Lucy is really coming into her own. However, Augustus is shooting himself in the foot, and there you go. That is First Degree Burn. It was an interesting chapter. We have seen characters make some changes for the better, make some changes for the worse. And while it is clear that David and James don't really care about Mike either way, it is nice to see Mike really taking to heart that talk he had with Daisy. Furthermore, it is not great to see Augustus kind of, even though he's doing it for the right reasons, at least in his mind, going too far and trying to prevent somebody from doing something that makes them happy because it's making someone else upset, or at least from his perception, making someone else upset. It is really funny though to consider that Lucy... Sorry. It is really funny though to consider that Augustus getting furious with Mike after Lucy screamed at him. It's like he's a tier 3 simp for Lucy, and he's so blinded by like his biases that he completely did not even consider that Lucy was just mad at him because he kept prying when she was actually just okay. He's like, no, this is Mike's fault. It's a bad day to be an Augustus fan, I guess. It doesn't necessarily kill his character because characters are allowed to make mistakes and have flaws, but it does make him a little bit of a silly goose in a way. With all that being said, I think First Degree Burn is a pretty good chapter. We have a new chapter that's going to start tomorrow, and I am looking forward to that. So what did you guys think about First Degree Burn? Did you think it was good? Do you think this killed Augustus's character? Do you think Mike was in the wrong at the end? Or do you think it's still kind of a gray area? Whatever you think, let me know in the comments below, and I will talk to you all later.